Welcome to The Author Next Door, where hosts Angela Haas and Cassie Newell chat about the wild world of writing and publishing. Join them for weekly episodes and special monthly guests. Pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to episode 31. I'm Angela Haas, and I'm here with my co-host Cassie Newell. And this month we've been doing a character study and discussing how to craft characters readers will love. If you're passionate about writing stories where heroes become their best selves, you'll love today's guest. Sue Brown-Moore is a book revision coach who helps authors craft character-driven fiction that touches heart and changes lives. Her empathetic approach breaks traditional story design rules to put character transformation first. Welcome, Sue, and thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to dive into some of those things that you're doing for authors. So
thank you for having me. I'm really excited. Anytime I get to talk about romance, I'm excited. Like, it doesn't matter if you're the person next to me at the bus stop, or if you're, a waiter in a restaurant, if you're a romance writer or reader, if you say, I read books, I'm like, do you read romance? And then we are off. So I'm really excited to talk about romance writing with people who actually read and write romance. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what we're all about. I guess I want to touch on something that I read in your bio. What is your empathetic approach that breaks the traditional story design rules that puts character transformation first? Can you touch on that a little bit since we're talking about characters?
Yeah, so empathetic. I am of the mindset that you should write what you feel the way you feel it and the way you write it. I don't believe that there is any one prescriptive way to write a book or tell a story or have a relationship. I think that all of the things that go into the writing that make you are just as important as the elements of the story itself. So when I'm working with an author or when I'm teaching frameworks for writing, it's less about how to do it and more about what the purpose is. So we're approaching it from the perspective of the benefit to the reader and the benefit to yourself as the writer and what you bring to the story. Not so much you must have act 1, act 2, act 3, and you must have this specific, POV, and first person present tense is never correct or is always correct. Like, none of that stuff matters. What really matters is who you are and who your ideal readers are and what makes you both happy in that overlap of like a Venn diagram.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. Already. That's like life-changing advice.
Yeah, I love that because there's so much within this industry that will tell you it must be this way, it must be that way, it must be this. And I love creative freedom. And in fact, sometimes I like to walk my own path. But I also want to take advantage of understanding the best way for myself to be successful too. So I think it's a little bit of both. And I'm curious, do you ever talk about marketing as you're doing the creative aspects with your clients?
Sometimes. So I will back up a step and say that as a former developmental editor, it's very easy to get in the weeds when you're working with somebody. So developmental editors do story work. So we care about character arcs, scene flow, high level plot structure. We care about the things that make the story feel like they make it what it is, right? The story. We're not as concerned about line level things or like grammar and such. Although I do like a well edited developmental edit. Let me just put that out there. If you're working with an editor, please put some effort into making it readable. But anyway, the question was, I got on a tangent. What was the question?
The question was, do you ever talk about marketing as you're in the creative process?
Thank you. I do this a lot. I have squirrel brain and I am distracted by shiny things and tangents.
Me too.
No, same.
So sometimes I do, like if I'm doing a developmental edit, which is these days very rare, but if I'm working directly with somebody and I find something in line, I might like highlight it, especially in like a Microsoft Word document, like highlight it and tag it with a comment like, hey, hashtag marketing, consider this for character voice or for a tagline or something like that. But I do less of that these days and more of the work in like a high level capacity. So I have a group called the Story Sorcery Society, which is for published romance writers who are working toward their next publication, whatever book you're working on, who want to take that next step in your career, whatever that is for you. And so we do talk about marketing in our group calls, which is once every 2 weeks. And we share techniques and tips with each other. Some of that comes from me and it's just sort of off the cuff stuff, but some of it comes from the fellow authors. So it's really just opportunistic, right?
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. I know that was not a character question, but I was just curious.
Okay.
I do love marketing though. I mean, the more I do it, the more I love it because I have to do it for my own business as well. And I think it's one of those things where initially you're like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
God, this is so
that's
hard,
me.
right? Yeah. And then the more you learn about it and the more you get into it, and if you're a data-driven person or if you're a visuals-driven person, you can find something about the marketing process that appeals to you in a creative way, and you can really lean into that piece of it. And then, farm out to your assistant or, a coworker or somebody who's working with you, the other pieces that you don't like as much so that you can continue to excel in that creative journey that fulfills you and not drains you.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I want to circle back to what you were saying about there's just no right way. But I mean, sometimes I think there are universal rules for characters though, right? Or can we just do whatever we want? I think that's what I struggled with after my first book. You're getting feedback from reviewers or just other people reading it, and you're like, wow, I never considered that my character would be seen this way. But I love them, but some readers did not like this way that I did this. Sometimes what gets overwhelming when you're a new author is that all the advice that comes at you, and you're like, wait a minute, I have to do it like this, or no, this person did it like this, and they said this is how you have to do it. And how do you find that balance of like, there's tropes, there's character archetypes for a reason, but you still have to find your own voice in the story. How do you balance that for the listeners who are in that zone where they're feeling that overwhelm right now?
That is a really, really good question. And there's a two-part answer. I have a two-part answer for that. The first piece is think about who you're taking feedback from. So anytime somebody gives you feedback, who is that person? How are they relevant to you? And do they overlap with your goal, with your writing? So high level, when you publish a book or when you write a book, just stepping back to the writing process, when you write a book, why are you writing that book? What is the purpose of that book? Is it for publication? Is it for personal enjoyment? Is it, I don't know, right? That's a you question.
Yeah.
If it's for publication, then you have other questions that open up because who is your reader? Who are you going to try to sell this book to? Because we really don't care about messaging for anybody who isn't your reader. The only people you care about writing for or publishing to, marketing to, are people that you actually want to love your book, not just read your book, love your book, connect with it, resonate with it. When you start thinking about it through that lens, then you start thinking about, okay, but who am I asking for feedback, advice, criticism, right? Because if you're asking people who are not your target audience and you're expecting them to give you advice that's useful for you in a productive way, it's going to be a disconnect. You might struggle. So then you're like, well, I don't know who to listen to. I'm not sure whose opinion is important. So that's why it's really important to understand who are your people. And if you're like working with a critique partner or an editor or an agent, anybody, it doesn't matter who they are. If they aren't like looking for what you're actually writing and who you want to write toward, then their feedback, I'm not going to say it's not important, but it's less important. You'll look at it through a different perspective with a different eye, right? So they might tell you they didn't like something, and that might be a good thing. It's like looking at those 1-star reviews on Goodreads, who are obviously the wrong target audience for that book. Those reviews are actually good signals for the author that you did a really good job niching down and hitting your themes. The second piece, well, before I get to the second piece, did you want to chat about that at all?
Yes.
Because I will just keep talking. Okay.
No, I'm just like hanging on your every word. I'm just over here. No, that
I have to give chat breaks because otherwise I'll just go on for like 30 minutes and just go off on like, I'll be in a whole other country by the time that you're ready to talk. So if you want to say anything, you can just interrupt me and that's fine.
Oh yeah. No, we will. Trust us.
We will.
Yeah.
No, that was great. I think knowing your why as to what you're writing for and how you're going about it is always key. And I think just to bring it back to characters a little bit, and my favorite to talk about is romance characters, there are so many stereotypes, if you will, in romance that we, love them or hate them or leave them, whatever, whatever that is. But it's interesting to me as someone who's a little more experienced that I've gotten myself in a loop of some of these stereotypes, and then I start to challenge myself to try to break them. But then I also go back to, but is that really what my readers want? I think that's my writer heart, what I want, but not necessarily what my readers want. So that's always a fun little battle around that. For example, I'm just going to ask the question, what's your hot take on romance breakups? Because there's this whole thing about the third act breakup, and it's such a common beat, and even reviewers will point it out, oh, there was a third act breakup or this or that. So I'm kind of curious from your perspective, what's a better alternative for emotional tension? Because that's what it is. It's about pulling them together, pulling them apart, and getting them back together, right? That's the emotional tension that a lot of writers utilize. And usually it's some kind of miscommunication, right, as to why they broke up in the first place. So I guess, I'm curious as to your thoughts about the third act breakup. Is there an alternative? How do you connect that emotional tension?
That's a really good question. And this is a pet peeve of mine as well, too. I do not believe, I do not believe that romance books must have a breakup. What you do need, there's romance beats, right? So if you're a romance writer or a reader, you may not realize it as a reader, but as a writer, you should know there are genre beats. And beats are basically expected moments in a story. And every genre has beats. Every genre has tropes. You're going to have to include both separately and together in your story. What's commonly referred to as the breakup beat is really, to me, the spend time apart beat. So they don't have to break up. They just have to spend some time apart. Now, that gets a little bit more complicated too, because it doesn't have to be a physical apartness. It needs to be a psychological separation. So you can have a forced proximity situation. Like if these two people are trapped in a space station together and they literally cannot get away from one another, you can still have that they spend time apart beat, because psychologically they've pulled away. They are like distancing themselves. And the purpose of this beat is to allow the character psychological growth. So it's part of the hero's journey. It's part of the character growth arc. I teach this in 5 stages. There's 5 stages to that growth arc that we see within a story or within a series if it's an expanded growth. Mm-hmm. But typically, usually in romance, there's 2 growth characters. So you'll have, I'm going to use male, female just for simplicity, but this is not true, of course, for all romances. And some have more than 2 characters. Some only have a single growth arc. But let's just assume in the traditional style, you have a male-female relationship and both have a growth arc. At some point in the late second act, if it's a 3 act, or early third act, you're going to have a time when the characters realize, ooh, this thing that's been holding me back that I'm really scared of, I have to face that, and I have to figure out, I have to get my shit together as a person so I can figure this moment out so that I can move past it. Because until we move past that thing that's holding us back, we cannot be a full romantic partner to somebody else. That's why this beat exists. So the breakup does serve that purpose generally. What really irritates me is when it is because of a miscommunication that could have been solved if somebody had just had a conversation. Just have the conversation, right? Yeah. But when you design your story so that it's not based around a conversation, it's based around an intrinsic character friction with themselves, like a reason that they cannot move forward that's maybe causing other relationship issues, that is relatable. Even if there is a breakup, that's still relatable because it serves a character purpose. It's not just a thing that you put in there as plot armor.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because I think when I was approaching my romance and trying to plot out the beats for the first time, even though I had written romantic subplots, but if it's a subplot, you don't have to hit all of those beats. You just sort of have to have 2 people coming together, I think, because the other action and other stuff going around them serves as part of the push and pull. But in the romance, that was just the romantic comedy. I really struggled because I think I was still writing from that hero-heroine's journey where you have the long night of the soul, that sort of okay, this is it. This is everything they've been working towards to overcome, to find love. how do you get there? How do you trigger that? That it's such an important moment, and it can go sideways. And I really tried to do it where technically my couple wasn't officially together. It was like Ross and Rachel. They were on a break when something happens. Okay. They're on a break. They agreed to take a break, and something happened, and then there was a misunderstanding. But I tried to put all this stuff in place. Rachel was really being kind. She couldn't really just text about it because it was the night before a wedding and she didn't want to take focus away from her bride and the groom. She just was like, okay, we'll deal with this for now. So it really was only a 24-hour true misunderstanding. But there were some readers who were just like, oh, third act breakup, we hate it. But then I see now no one likes enemies to lovers. But that used to be the number one trope.
What?
Yes.
No.
I'm seeing that flood IG and threads.
I love enemies to lovers.
These
I do
influencers are now saying we're done with them. We hate enemies to lovers. And I'm like, okay, well, all right.
Well,
I think your whiteboard away
aspect
and just stop it.
Of why they're done with it, because I've seen a few of it too. But I don't like enemies to lovers when it's such an ingrained hatred that you can't foresee who's going to give in first. Then it doesn't make sense. There's always a side that gives in first that never really hated the other person. It's like the little boy that pulled the girl's pigtails, but he really, liked her the whole time. And she's like, you are such a jerk, stop hurting me or what have you. Not that I'm talking about physical pain, but just teasing type pain. So I think there's a difference though, because I've seen some of the paranormal romances where you're just like, it's not like a Romeo Juliet kind of thing of their families. It's like ingrained hatred from the very get-go. It's like, what magically happened? Because there's no buildup. There's no aspect that they had to come together to work together to respect one another to get over that. I don't know. I love good banter and all romances, and enemies to lovers is definitely one of my faves.
I think the key to writing good enemies to lovers is there's no true hate. If you hate someone, you can't love them. And you can, it's going to take a long time, right? But coming from a place of true hate, one, it feels bad. Like as a romance reader, I'm here for the fantasy. I'm here for the happy feels. Like I know there's going to be some unhappy feels because you got to have a roller coaster to have the highs and lows, right? But coming from hate is a really, really long journey. So I think that generally really good enemies to lovers is where there's a dislike, but that dislike is based in something that is a reflection of self. So if I were to date myself, I would probably hate myself. I would hate that person because I'd be like, all the things I dislike about myself, I see it reflected back at me, right?
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of that spending time together romance beat, is so that they can realize the give and take and what they bring to each other, how they help one another realize these things they need to, recognize about themselves and overcome about themselves. I love enemies to lovers. And I kind of want to take a sidestep here and talk about the opinions of people who are driving the trends, right? So I don't watch book talk. I'm not on social media. I took a big old heck no break from social media in 2019 when a lot of stuff happened in our industry. And I'm done with it. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm there for very basic things on Facebook and Instagram, but I don't follow any of the book talks or stuff because I don't, it's not my thing, right? It's too performative. So whenever I hear somebody say, oh, people don't like it anymore, I'm like, okay, but which people, right? So don't get in your head about so-and-so influencer said they don't like this thing. That's great. For the people who like the kind of stories they like, they are a perfect taste curator voice. But that may not be you. So you have to find the people who are your taste curators. I used to be a blogger, so this is something that I did before I was an editor. And they're not going to appeal to everybody. When I was a blogger, my taste did not appeal to everybody, but I developed a following of people that liked what I liked and they took my recommendations. So I would really only then promote or try to read books by authors I thought might be in my scope of Else I'm just creating discord and chaos, right? So I would say just warning to people out there who are like, oh, but the person said that they don't like third act breakup. They don't like enemies to lovers. They don't like this trope or that trope, which is probably going to change every month, right? But that's just opinion of people who have a specific reader audience. Does that reader audience overlap with your intended reader audience as a romance writer? That's the
Right.
question.
Yeah, I love it.
That's helpful for me to hear, because I think I was coming from a place of being unsure of myself. I think that's where it starts. I think that's where you can get more influence. And I was
For sure.
following the people I was told to follow on Book Talk and the romance influencers. But then I started to notice myself, because I had that insecurity. It's like, oh no, I'm going to change my story like this because this influencer. Then I started to see the trend where they change their mind. And you're right, it is some, not all, we don't want to generalize, but a lot of it, the popular ones, are performative. They're trying to get a reaction. They are trying to rile people up. And so where I was following their advice, I started to be like, wait a minute, this person's not a writer. You can be a reader and you can have opinions, but until you are writing and knowing the work it takes to craft all this stuff and to, stay current with reader trends, I unfollow pen accounts because they bring out that whiteboard and they're like, I hate this. Don't ever do this, and then it's like, okay, tune out the noise, write what you think is a good story, and start there. It doesn't mean ignoring the trends and tropes, but like, it was just too in my head and it became noise. And I had to.
Well, I think everything's cyclical too. So 1 minute vampires are hot, the next minute they're not, then it's werewolves, then it's back to vampires. No, it's rom-coms, it's hockey romance, it's
Now
like
it's
all the
romantasy.
things. And it
Yes.
just cycles. Romantasy was paranormal for the longest time, and now it's got its new category, and all the things. I don't know. I don't listen because I'm stubborn-headed.
Yeah.
Well, me too. Like, I'm the same. I'm very stubborn. Like, never tell me what to do, because I will do the opposite, unless I think you're trying to manipulate me, in which case I'll do nothing. Right. So I'm just very like paranoid about don't manipulate me.
Yeah.
But because that's how I'm so sensitive to marketing. Right. So like, I have just come to a place where I really only care about what I care about when it comes to reading books. I don't care if this is a bestseller. I don't care if it's in print. I don't care like if the author's an unknown. I do not care. I'm just looking for the experience that I want to. It's the fantasy. What fantasy do I want to go on today? Do I want Sierra Simone angst? Do I want Lauren Blakely good feels? Do I want something like really sweet and candy and like, over the top ridiculous? Do I want, a romantasy that's going to tear me apart and put me back together? These are all reader experiences that we choose intentionally. And I think nobody can tell you as a reader or as a writer what's right. And that's what I love about this genre is we have so much creative control on both sides.
Yeah, agree. Although, I would love to be a bestseller one day. No, don't take that away from me, Sue.
Hey, I'll be happy for you when you become a bestseller, for sure.
I would love it. I would love
as a
that.
reader, like, I don't look for the bestseller tag, because all that means, like, as somebody who has been an acquiring editor, who has been in the publishing side, like, all that means is that somebody put money behind that title. Yeah. Now, sometimes, like in the case of 50 Shades of Grey, which came out of fan fiction of Twilight, which was its own kind of massive explosion, those they sort of, there are breakout titles like that do organically evolve. But then usually when they're mega successful, it's because somebody put money behind it.
Yeah,
so
I know.
USA Today bestseller, New York Times bestseller, those come from lists of specific sales from specific bookstores. They're gamed, right? So as a reader, knowing that, I don't look for that. I look for recommendations. Honestly, to me, the best way to discover new books, and for you as an author, the best way to get discovered is to this is going to be such obvious advice, but newsletter swaps, right? So when Lauren Blakely is one of my one click. Like, one click means I don't care what you wrote, I'm going to buy it. Like, without looking at the title, I will buy the thing, right? So Lauren Blakely is one of my one click authors that I just love. And anytime she, in her newsletter, which I read every single one she sends, if she recommends books in the bottom, I check them out. So like that is so powerful, right? Build your newsletter, get with authors who are your same overlap audience. We're working together, not against each other, right? That is really how we grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
I know we're supposed to be talking about characters, but I'm telling you, I will preach about anything.
Romance is a character all on its own.
Romance is the fifth character. Yes. No, the whole business. It's all part of it. I think marketing romance is a character. It's the villain. to me.
Sometimes. Sometimes it works out. I don't know. I'm the positive one right now this year on marketing, I think, than Angela.
Yeah. I just want to ignore it. I just want to write more books. It's just about balance too. I think, there's some days where I don't want to do any marketing and I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to write today. And then
Yep.
I pick a day and an hour and be like, what can I do for this hour? What can I schedule? What can I do? That's all I can do. That's the best I can do, So that's where we are. Well, what tips can you give authors for where to start with creating a character? Sometimes it's like, I have a story idea and that's it. I have a title and that's it. I was listening to a song in my car and I have a random scene and where do I do with it? Of course, there's no right or wrong, but do we pick the tropes first and then start characters around that?
So circling back to that, why is my storytelling style empathetic and different? It's because of this. There's no right answer. So the answer is, where are you starting from? So as I can be a very frustrating person to have a conversation about story with, because I'm always going to bring it back to you. I'm always going to ask you what you want and what you think, because it's not about what I think, it's about what you do. But ultimately, it comes down to, what is the soul of the book? And for me, the soul of the book in a romance is the character journey, the transformation. In what way does this hero or multiple heroes become a better version of themselves? And then once you understand that, what is that theme? What is that messaging? Because that is what everything in the story needs to sort of stick to. That's the cohesion, is that character transformation arc. If there's discord there, if they don't play together nicely, if they don't like resonate in a way that works with the readers that you want to serve, there's going to be this like je ne sais quoi, like this, I'm not really sure what's wrong with this story, but something's off, right? So
Right.
My recommendation, if people are like, just give me a general answer, like, oh my gosh, one thing. Okay, the one thing is backstory. Do a backstory exercise. So choose your hero, even if it's from a scene. Like, let's say right now I have this exercise I'm doing with my Story Sorcery Society called the Lit Stage. And I love this exercise so much because it helps you like get into one moment and then just go, just let your creativity go. So imagine this like one moment in your mind, and there's some criteria around this, but let's say that there's a spotlight shining on a stage and there's a stool that's been tipped over and a microphone with a guitar sort of laying discarded. What happens next? Right? Then you just write the scene. What happens next? Because once you start exploring what happened, then you can look at what you did and say, okay, but why did that happen? And then you can start doing character studies, right? So now we really care about, who is this person? What wound did they experience in the past? Why do they feel the way they did? How did they grow up? How has who they are, how's their past influenced what they're doing in their future? Can those things be changed? Should those things be changed? These are all the questions that we can think about as we're writing, so that you don't get stuck in that moment of like, well, now what, right? Because it always comes back to the character. It's always about the character.
I love that. This just happened to me. So I'm writing I write short romance. So they're 2-hour reads for the busy reader, and they're small town. And a lot of the time, because it's kind of like a little soap opera in my head in this next series, I have all these other characters and then I'm moving side characters over into their own stories and things. And I have a married couple that have split over the holidays, and I'm getting them back together. And I was like, why would this man not be there for his family with his twin boys and his wife? What could he have done that she would have kicked him out for? And then I was making him a workaholic because he was afraid financially. And then it was like, but why would he be afraid of that? Okay, so maybe his dad was gone and he had to be the financial breadwinner for his younger brother and sister and their family. So then it was like, oh crap, I have twin 5-year-old boys. And it was just build my business bigger, bigger, bigger. And he just put the business first, So then I was like, okay, but then how do I get him to where she lets him back in? And it was really me thinking about his past and how his brother was like, we can hire people. Let me do the job. And of course, the brother is in book 3. So then it helped me build the backstory for the brother to get over into the third one. But, you have to take a minute. And sometimes you don't know those things until you start writing them out. That happens to me a lot.
Yeah, that's such a good example of a couple things. One, like how do you just develop the story as you're writing it? And two, like using that backstory to sort of build on the themes that you have and then move forward. Like now you have another story that came out of it, right? But
Yeah.
I think what one of the questions I get all the time that I think is really important to talk about is how do I write a better story in the first draft? How do I write the best story in the first draft? Right?
Mhm.
How can I not have to revise? And I think like all of my answers, there's no right answer because for some people, especially once you're established as a writer, you know your brand, you know your style, you've got your systems down, like personally, internally, and you understand who you're writing for. You can churn out pages, right? But
Yeah.
some people have to discover as they write. This is me. I don't write romance, but in everything else that I do, I'm a discovery creator. I have to discover it as I create it. That means I'm never going to have a perfect first draft. I'm probably not even going to have a good first draft, but at least I know that my creativity lies in that process. So I can build time in for myself to say, okay, you're going to need probably 3 or 4 revisions, and they're going to take you some time. And you need to give yourself 3 or 4 times longer than you think you do to get it done when you're making appointments with other people like editors or cover designers or whatever. So I think one of the things writers, especially romance writers, get really down on themselves about is, well, I read a really messy first draft, or my writing's so crappy, it takes me forever to get it right. No, no, no. That's fine. You're just discovering it as you write it. And sometimes the most
Yeah.
beautiful pieces come from messy beginnings.
Yeah, I tend to like to plot, but I like loose plots, and I'm a skeleton drafter, and I'm very much what I call a quilter. So when I skeleton draft, it's probably more of an outline to most people, like a really big outline, and maybe more like a screenplay because I tend to do the dialogue to kind of get the personality of the characters, and then I go in and I pluff it out, with all the scenery and other things. Because I also have to be very aware of my word count, which is a killer with short sometimes. And yeah, I have to move, move, move. So my tensions usually are not third act breakups. It's usually the inciting incident before you even get in my story most of the time because I don't have time for it.
You were talking about writing, like word count is so strict. Writing short is so much harder than writing long.
I can't do
It's
it. It's
I mean,
impossible.
it is
Love it
tough.
though.
And like I really love a well-written novella or even short story. I'm talking like 17 to 25,000 words. That's the like shorter than that is fine, but like I want some time to get into it, right? And you really only so much you can fit on the page. So like you said,
Yeah.
you do have to have things like the inciting incident off page. And for a romance, it's even harder. Like it almost needs to be these people have met before. Like second chance works really well in short stories because
Mhm.
the reader believes it. It's relatable. It's not like insta love fated mates. Although if that's your thing, totally cool. But it's in real life, fated mates is not as common, I would say.
Right.
Right? So yeah, I think that's another like pressure point that we put on ourselves is, well, I can write a 90,000 word story. Why can't I write a 20,000 word story? Because they're different skill sets. It's hard.
Right.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, but I have to tell you, I wrote a novel recently and going back into short, it threw me. It threw me so hard. So I was like, I don't know if I can, but you get back in the groove of it. I don't know. It's really interesting to me because they do have to know each other. I only had so far 2 couples that I've written that have met the first time. Everyone else, there's a background for them. Obviously, husband and wife. This is second chance, obviously, that I just spoke on. I mean, that's much more relatable than them never having have met. It's really difficult. But I did kind of a faded one for one that's coming out next year. And I told my editor, she was like, I loved it. I'm like, I'm never doing this trope again in contemporary romance. I don't know what I was thinking. It's never happening again. So you also have those breakthroughs as a writer, like this was the worst thing possible I could have done to myself. There are definitely tropes, I think, in romance that are, well, it depends on the writer. They're a little easier than others, depending on the subgenre that you're writing into.
Yeah, I agree with that. You obviously killed it with your short stories, Cassie. They're amazing. I'm trying to find ways to cut because I've got a 105K romance novel. Although I've noticed Emily Henry's and Lucy Score's, those are not short novels. They are long. And so I think whatever the story needs to be, that's what it needs to be. But I do agree that like second chance is definitely easier in a short because you're just talking about their second chance and can weave in what happened, but it's not totally starting from scratch. That leads me to, what are some characters we don't like seeing in romance? You had talked about before, Sue, the alpha hole character.
Oh, yeah.
What is an alpha hole to you? Because I love that concept. And how can we avoid, it is challenging, I think sometimes. I don't think it's fair that women are like, yeah, I know how to write men, whatever. Men are just as complex beings, they're
Yeah.
not,
No, I'm just
they are. We got to give our men some credit here,
They're simpler in some ways, but more complex in others. There's a nice balance there, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how can we avoid the alpha hole ones?
Well, first, I think we should define what an alpha hole is for anybody listening who's like, what are they saying? So alpha is like alpha asshole, basically, is what it is.
Right.
Alpha hole. So for me, and I had to really think about how to define this because especially as romance readers, and if you get into certain tropes that have like these big followings and that's like where you spend all your reading time, there's certain like givens, right? Like you sort of just know about, like with the HEA in romance. We just expect it. It's going to be there. It has to be there. That's the point. Or maybe, HFN. There's got to be a happy ending through a love story, right? Same thing with alpha holes. People who read them, like, this is just what I expect. I know what it feels like, right? So I had to sit down and be like, okay, what is an alpha hole? How would I define this? So I came up with, it's characters, doesn't have to be men. I would say this is gender agnostic, but tends to be men in romance because romance is typically written by women and power struggles within, society and all of the history that goes along with what makes romance. But it's characters who have obvious power in the story. So that's usually money, positional authority, like a CEO or billionaire or something like that. Those characters who have that power, who think they know what is best for their romantic partner, again, still non-gendered here, and they're going to push that thing on that person, regardless of what the person is saying. Hey, no, I don't want that. Because sometimes in romance, no means yes. And that's changing more in modern romances. So alpha holes really, really play into that no means yes theory because they think they know what is best and they think they're doing the best thing. But as a reader, I'm like, back off, bud. Like, I don't need that in my life. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I'm my own person. I will say that there are some readers who love that. And I think this sort of goes into the dynamic of the relationship power dynamics. Like, what do you want in a relationship? What do you look for in a relationship? How deep do those power dynamics go? We're talking like full life power dynamic shift? Like somebody usually has more power than the other all the time? Or is it in certain situations? Is it only romantically? Typically in alpha holes, it's the whole story. These people, I'm going to say these guys, because typically it's men, are just in charge of everything all the time and they believe that they should be. And that is where it becomes frustrating for me because I'm just like, oh my God. And it tends to have, they tend to be paired with heroines, typically women, who have not stepped into their power yet, who are meek, maybe even clumsy. Like if you want to use the 50 Shades reference or Twilight reference,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, right. Like that's a really good example of an alpha hole. Christian Grey is an alpha hole. Even Edward Cullen to some degree is an alpha hole because they know what's best and they're going to take actions no matter what you want for what's best.
So there's an alpha male character and then there's an alpha hole. And the alpha hole has nothing in it. It's just a hole. We're writing romance here. We'll keep it clean because we could go the other way. But there's alpha male characters. Like when I first started reading romance, see, when you're writing superhero fiction, you're taught that the women must rescue the men now. The superhero female is the one with all the power. And the male is just that supportive, wonderful guy. I've started seeing that in superheroes in general, just film, TV, whatever. But when I started reading romance, I was like, wait a minute, isn't this the alpha male that we were supposed to be getting away from? The fantasy is there this strong, powerful male who's either gentle on the inside, totally flustered around the female and takes care of her but doesn't take away from her. So I had to learn who that guy was, but I have noticed some of the age gap ones I've read where the older male is just this like refined master of life, and you have this vapid, like just totally alpha female character, alpha whole female character, or what's the opposite of an alpha? Beta whole female character.
I love it.
Omega
I don't know
hole.
what I'm saying. Let's go with it for now. But I just like I've been reading some of these where like the female, like there's nothing there, and then the male just swoops in and makes everything okay. And some of these are bestsellers, so there's a reason they have 30,000 reviews and USA Today, New York Times bestsellers. I've been over here in action adventure. I thought these are things that we are avoiding, and I had to really shift because I'm like, is this just the fantasy? Or I don't know.
Oh, I have thoughts about
You know
this.
what I'm
I have so
saying?
many thoughts about this.
I had like 80 questions and 50 made up words in there. So I'm sorry. Sort
So I
through all
think-
that.
There were like, that was actually like, I could do an entire series of podcasts on just questions from that alone. But the thing that came to mind first was, well, there's really kind of three pieces. One is who curates what's seen. One is what do the readers actually want. So we're looking at reader profiles. And two is how far has the industry evolved at the point when a story has been written. So when you think back to things like Twilight was, I don't know, more than a decade ago. Like I don't even like to think about that because
30.
it makes me feel very old, but it was a long time ago. Right.
Sorry.
So when you're thinking about these stories that were like, yeah, but Twilight was so big and 50 was so big. Yes, but look at when they were written. And also like they inspired an entire subgenre. Like there are a lot of like big name, very successful authors today who have massive followings. Like you were talking about, hundreds of thousands of 5-star reviews because they came out of this, what is now a mature genre, right? That happens, that evolves over time. So like Cassie was saying earlier, everything is cyclical. At some point that's going to go out of style and then it's going to come back in. It's going to have a little bit of a twist when it comes back in. Like paranormal and fantasy romance are now coming back in as romantasy, right? It's different. Like the romantasy of today is not the paranormal romance of yesterday, but there's a lot of similarity and there's crossover in the reader audience. But I think too, we have to think about where is romance evolving to? Because the purpose of romance, as far as I see it, is to empower women and humans, really humanity, because women are humans. We are half of the human race. So empower people who are disempowered to become their best, happiest selves. What does that look like today? Because what it looked like 20 years ago is not what it looks like today. And what it looks like today is not going to be what it looks like even next year or 5 years from now. So when we're talking about these vapid female characters, they probably originally existed to serve a specific purpose, and we have now evolved beyond that purpose. So that's what I always come back to is, what is the purpose of this story? Who is it appealing to? What is the message of it? What am I supposed to take away from this as a reader? And is that the thing I want to take away? Do I even want to go on this journey? And when it comes to alpha holes, I'm done with them. I don't want that journey anymore. But there was a time when I did. I liked it.
Right.
I enjoyed it. Right? Because like you said, a powerful partner. I'm going to say partner because it could be you could have a femdom too who's an alpha hole, right?
Yeah.
But it's a powerful partner who you can depend on to take care of you, to know what you need intuitively, which is a whole other pet peeve of mine that we probably need to talk about. But just somebody who's got your back and also is sexy, right? They're sexy and they appeal to you on like this primal level because according to the media, only people who have an 8-pack who are, look like they live at the gym and are like alpha and in charge and rich. Those are the people who are worthy of love. And that's such bullshit. And I think as a genre, we are starting to overcome that, but it's a slow process. So we are still seeing some of the artifacts of previous generations, but mixed in with that are still reader preferences. As a reader, if you're like, Sue, shut up, I like alpha holes. Great. Read your alpha holes. Like read what makes you happy, right? Like that is the whole point of our genre is being freaking happy. Okay.
Well,
I'm just going to keep going.
Done.
Yeah.
The end. Yep.
I have to tell you though, I'm okay with more alpha males, deciding what's for dinner, taking the initiative,
and cooking that dinner and
Yeah.
cleaning that bathroom without you
Oh my
having to
gosh.
tell them.
I just wrote
Mhm.
this in book 2, where he was like, I remember us cleaning the kitchen and you said this was a form of foreplay. So he
Yeah.
cleaned the
Maybe
kitchen.
that's the trick. Is that the trick? You tell them
Oh
it's,
I
yeah,
think
ooh,
so.
babe,
that's
I
the
think this
trick.
is
Oh,
really sexy.
we are
It is.
really
It's very
talking
sexy. It's such a
dirty
turn on.
right now. We're talking dirty right now. Literally, literally.
But it's interesting because a lot of times I think newer writers tend to cookie cut their characters and they don't add in those little spices of life that I just spoke on, or what you just spoke on in terms of characterization, where they're not all 6-pack abs and things of that nature. Women have hips. And if this woman has had twins, she's going to have some hips and other things. And you gain weight and you lose weight together. I do think romance, though, if you can pull it off, it's really about a partnership long term. There's always that lust in the beginning, but it's always those pieces at the end that you're rooting for. There's always the initial attraction, but yeah.
Yeah.
How would you advise newer writers or even more established writers not to fall victim to the cookie cutter character physically?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I was just thinking about this when you were talking just now is separate in your mind what you're writing as aspirational for yourself. Like, I wish that I were this size. I wish that I had this color hair. I wish that I had, why do romance heroes always have blue eyes? They always have blue eyes. It's a thing. Like, I don't know why. It's the striking blue eyes of every Hollywood actor, right? Why, like, ask yourself, why do I want to write this character? Is it because I want to be like that? I want to be skinnier. I want to feel more attractive. I wish I had whatever XYZ, right? And if it's for you, because you need to write it, then you write that character, do an exercise, get it out of you. Like, write what you need to write to be happy in your writing life. But also keep in mind that might not be what you're going to publish, because now we have to think about, who am I writing for? What do my readers actually want to see? Am I writing for women who are in their 40 to 60, 65 age range? Because if that's so, I'm probably not going to write perfectly skinny 22-year-old girls in short little black dresses in high heels, because that's harder for that age group, the demographic, I guess, to identify with. So
Mhm.
really it comes down to, okay, I need to write what I need to write for me, because psychologically that's important, because you're working through something there, right? But on the flip side, what's actually going to be right for my story, and what story do I want to tell? And once you understand, like, you start asking those questions, you'll get clarity on which direction to go based on your own answers.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
good.
Well, I think we're gonna have you back on at some point, because there's so much. We need like 4 hours to really dive into great characters with you.
This is
But
my whole business, is characters. That is what I
yeah,
focus on.
I
I love
know, I
characters.
know. But I want to talk about story sorcery for a second. Can you? Because I'm currently doing that with you, although summer retail season hit and I've been like, I can't wait till fall where I can actually like really immerse myself in it. But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the small group setting for me, because sometimes I've been in cohorts and there's 30 people and you just can't really like get to know or connect. But can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you're doing with that and how that's evolving, when it's available, kind of stuff?
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me to plug it a little bit.
Oh yeah.
It's still in pilot program. So I started this, I had this really weird start to my year. I'm a person that likes to plan, but I'm very bad at, like, delivering on the plan. So I love the planning process. It's like my creative zone. It's super happy. I'm like, bullet points. I'm like a plotter who never follows the plot, right? Like,
Oh boy.
that's me. Yeah. So in January, I made this big plan where I was like, okay, this is exactly what I'm doing for every month of the year. And here's how many hours it's going to take me. And, like, I did everything. And then I looked at that after 2 weeks of work and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do any of that. I'm done. I got to do something else. And so I
Right.
had this crisis for like a month where I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my business? Like, where am I going to go? I don't want to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm so burned. And I had some discussions with some colleagues of mine, and I realized that I really wanted to create a space where I could go back to connecting personally with writers. I used to be a developmental editor for about 7 years, and I stopped because I could only work one on one. I had a ceiling, I had an income ceiling. But also, I found myself getting too in the weeds with those stories, and I couldn't truly serve them because I was too caught up in myself, right? Like I needed something different. So I took a couple years apart from that, and then I only did like, one to many workshop type stuff, and I did no one-on-one work. And I realized that I wanted a combination. So I created the Story Sorcery Society to be a combination of the like education and learning in little bite-sized pieces, tiny bite-sized pieces that you can do in like, an hour or less in a month. Combining that with the small group work where you get to actually talk with colleagues who are on your level and also get feedback from somebody like me who has a lot to say about basically everything in the romance genre, clearly, right? So I made it very small for a reason. So there's a fairly rigid application process. You have to be a published romance writer in at least a 50-ish, 55,000 plus words. So not short stories, not anthology, like under your own name. So you must be published in the romantic fiction genre, which also includes romantic urban fantasy, romantasy, the things that have strong romantic components. And you have to be working toward publishing a story, a romance story right now. No, you don't have to have a publication date, but you have to be actively working as a romance writer, because the stuff that we're talking about it's relevant to now. It's relevant to keeping you moving forward. Like, what is your next goal in your business? Do you want to up your income by a certain amount so that you can replace your side job? Do you want to make a bestseller list? And if so, what is the reason for that goal? And what are the steps to get you there? So my mission with the Story Sorcery Society is to help romance writers who are in that sort of mid-list muddiness to figure out where am I going? How am I going to get there? And to give them a really strong, empathetic, like happy support place to be.
Yeah. No, it's been great. And the people are great. And I love it because there's nothing wrong with being at different levels. I mean, I was a person who didn't know what I was doing and hadn't written anything, was just starting. There's cohorts and definitely a place for that. But I love this because now that I have published a couple novels, I'm not starting at zero. So the issues that I'm dealing with are a little bit more unique than how do we do an inciting incident? What do we, I don't need that help, but some of the niche marketing and like, yeah, I've got this situation where how do I have a third act breakup without a misunderstanding? That's a pretty like specific need that you have when you've already been writing and publishing. So that's
who
why
do you
it's so
ask, right?
right.
So like when you have
it's
those questions
hard.
as a writer and you're working in a silo, like, well, maybe you have an editor, maybe you have an agent, maybe you have beta readers, but it's different to be able to just go to a place and say, hey, I have this question and I trust you because you are me. You're basically me, right? You're a different version of me. So like that kind of feedback system is so important to help you grow. Because I think you're right. There is a lot of beginner level content out there. And then there are things like RAM, which are way high level, right? So what is the middle space? How do we fill the middle space? Yeah, because like you can't be super high. You can't be Nora Roberts until you go through the mid list, right? Well, some people can. I suppose you can like break out, but typically most people, it's an iterative process, and you learn and you grow and you make a big backlist, and then you got to start marketing your backlist, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we can put the link, but where can listeners find you?
Currently, I can't remember the URL, but I will give you the link for that. So I am there is a wait list right now. So I'm basically doing a cohort style onboarding. So every 3 months is the plan. So right now we're in our second founding member closed pilot cohort. I'm hoping to do the full like official launch in late September for starting in October. So the fall will be the first major cohort, I hope. And once that happens, I'll bring everybody in to start the cohort at the beginning of the 3 months, and then we'll have sort of like getting to know each other time. And then if you miss that, that's totally fine. There's a wait list, and I send you information when you're on the wait list to let you know what's going on. So like, here's what to look forward to, and here's the things that we do, and is this the right place for me? Answer those kind of questions. So in that URL, if you read the requirements and you're like, hey, that's totally me, join the wait list, and you will get all the information that you need once it goes live.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, the cat butt has appeared, and that's usually the sign that we wrap up. No, it actually happens perfectly timed. When the cat butt appears, that means there it is. So I need to ask.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
We need to do our table topic.
Oh, can I share one more link with your
Of
listeners?
course.
Yeah.
Share
Okay,
everything. Yeah.
so I have this is totally free. It's called my character arc worksheet. So we've talked about characters. I love characters so much. Like that
Yay.
transformation journey is the most important thing. And so I have a character arc worksheet that you can download on my website, totally free. It's basically like guides you through the 5 steps, the 5 stages, and how to fill them in and what's the key component there. So go to hi.suebrownmore.com/author next door podcast, and that will take you right to it. You just sign up and I will send it to your inbox.
That sounds
Wonderful.
amazing.
Thank you
Thank you so
for
much.
that.
Yeah, that's great.
Great.
And we'll put it on the YouTube and all the other links as well. So, okay, I think we feel like we're rebels. So this question is, if you could hang out with any band of outlaws, who would it be?
Band of outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any bands of outlaws.
Well, it could be like Bonnie and Clyde or something. Like who? Bands of outlaws.
Outlaws.
Think bigger. Like think historical outlaws.
I'm thinking romance.
I'm going in my romantic fiction world because that's all I know.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would hang out with Bones from the Night Huntress series because,
Ooh.
like, as far as the vampire world goes, they kind of are. They're not outlaws, but they're kind of rebels. Like they're doing things different and they're really upsetting things. If you go through the whole book series, like they kind of revolutionize the vampire power structure. But the whole Bones like setup, I think, like talking about book boyfriends, he's not my original, but he's my like long-standing favorite, even though those books are long over. So I would totally hang out with Bones and Vlad and all of them. My favorite.
That's awesome.
Cassie.
So right now, well, J.R. Ward has been a longtime fixture and immediate click buyer for me for like over 20 something years. Can't believe it's been that long, but she's just now on Passion Flicks and they just had season 1 and then it got me rereading the books, which was ridiculous because I have a TBR that's obscene. And yeah, I would want to hang out with the original Black Dagger Brotherhood.
They're totally rebels.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're outcast rebels for sure.
Yeah, they are. So yeah, I was like, Jesse James? No, I want the Black Dagger Brotherhood.
Give me Wrath.
Yeah, I want to meet the Blind King, and I need to meet Thee and Butch because they're my 2 faves.
I love them.
I would if there's like a real life Thomas Crown, the art heist people. I would want to be part of some like harmless art heist that doesn't hurt anyone, like some gazillionaire who has a bunch of art and is not going to notice one piece missing, like the Italian Job. That's how I would want to hang out with those people. So, they're all characters. Anyway,
Yes.
Thank you to Sue Brown Moore. We so appreciate you coming on. And thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps us with visibility. Next week, new month. And we're talking about how to grow your business as an author. Until then, keep writing, keep doing. We'll see ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining today's episode of The Author Next Door. Be sure to like, follow, and tell us your thoughts of this week's episode. Angela and Cassie would love to hear from you.